Okay. Hi, Greg, and welcome to the Warriors Raised podcast. Thank you for joining me here today. It's totally an honor to have you here, and I'm excited to dive in and see where this conversation goes. I have a few questions that I love to ask almost everyone that I have on here, and also there is an element of this that just takes its own path. So anything that you feel inspired to share at any point, please just go for it. This really is like me showcasing your stories. So that's what we're here for today. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah. So to start with, I'd love to hear, I know you're preparing for Worlds right now, and I'd love to just hear a little bit about your, like where you're at in that excitement or yeah, all of it.
Yeah, for me, so we're 2 weeks out now. I'll be competing on Friday. Looks like on the schedule there. So roughly around 2 weeks out is where I like to do a lot of live rolling, live sparring. Try not to get hurt. So you're being selective with your partners, but you want to get that good feel, those good looks. Just feel really confident about what you plan on doing. So I've been doing a lot of that. Like today, for example, I'm dropping into a gym in town, Hoodrich, great guys, very welcoming. I'll do a little cross training there, get some different looks. So it's kind of how my prep's looking like right now.
Wonderful. That's awesome. And when's the last time you competed? When was your last?
My last competition was ADCC Vancouver.
Okay.
So it was pretty good showing. I did the advanced masters. Really been working hard on different leg locks over the last few years. That really became prolific. So this was one of the tournaments where most of the ones before that I was able to showcase my defensive ability for leg locks, and this one I really felt like I was very offensive and in control of that situation. So that was really good for me. Ended up losing by 2 points. I'm not really sure how they were scored, but it was a good experience.
Yeah. And going into this upcoming competition, is there anything that you have that's like a personal goal that you're wanting to, like, that you could share with us?
For me, and what I like to tell like any of my students and stuff, like perfect match, and I'm not satisfied until this goes in all my matches, but I look for a takedown of some type, whether it's wrestling or judo based. I like to pass the guard, get into a dominant position, then hit a submission from there. So if I do that, that's perfect match. Yet to see that. Usually it's like a guard pull before I could get a takedown, or maybe a takedown and something else happens. So yeah, I'm always striving for takedown, guard pass, mount, or some kind of dominant position, then a submission.
Mm-hmm. That like perfect path of or like sequence of events.
Yeah. And into IBJJF, you got to be ready for that kind of scoring criteria. And in the past, I've fought a lot of submission only tournaments. So, and just how we roll and how we train, we're not always just trying to dominate position. We're trying to create new positions, go for submissions. So you got to kind of change your mindset a little bit going into these to be ready for those positional battles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's the main shift for you going into like a points-based tournament as opposed to submission only?
So points based, my main focus is just like in training with my partners and stuff like that. I try to gain positions and then not lose them. So I try to hold positions dominantly, let them move around and advance to more dominant positions. So you're kind of going through that criteria of scoring where you're passing the guard, you're getting a mount, you're getting a back mount, transitioning through those different positions, making sure you're scoring before you're moving on, which I've been refereeing for a while now too. And some of the more advanced competitors I see very, very ensuring that they're scoring their points before they move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like they're counting in their head.
Well, literally when I'm reffing, they'll stop and look at me. And I'm counting, making sure they're there long enough, and they'll stop and look at me, they score. So in the points-based system, like you got to make sure you're getting your points, because say you go for that submission, now you've lost your position. Maybe they didn't even score on you, but now you've lost that opportunity. That I'm not exactly sure what my match time is. Maybe 5 minutes at Masters, but there's not a lot of time to get that position back.
Hmm. Yeah, cool. So one thing I've been really curious about is, and I know this is different for each individual, but do you study your opponents before you meet them on the mat?
Well, this one, like last time I checked registrations, there was over 20 competitors in my division. So not really. If it's smaller, maybe I'll take a look at them. Obviously, if anybody I know knows them, I'll say, "Hey, do you know this guy? What's his tendencies?" Something like that. But in this one, I just gotta focus on being best at what I'm at best at, not allowing them to, get have their way and me dominate my style of game.
Just go in and play your game, basically.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta, what every match is going to be different. Everybody's going to have a different specialty, especially at the brown belt level. So you just gotta know that they're going to be good. So you got to be solid in your defense and fundamentals, and really try to imply your game on them.
Hmm. Yeah. Aside from the like physical training, like you were mentioning, what you're focusing right now at 2 weeks out, is there anything else that's like that helps you to get into like mindset of competing, or are you one of those like always ready to compete? Like how's it? Tell me about that part for you.
I mean, I've been my first competition day. I was actually just talking to Hoodrich about this yesterday. Was over 13 years ago. My wife was pregnant with my son, and he was born 2 days later after my first competition. So it really that was like the height of stress and peak. But I've been doing it 13 years now. So now it's just more routine. Um, I don't seem to get as nervous and anxious as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I accept it. I'm at peace. I do have a bit of an internal mantra I've started lately, where I just kind of, I want to be here. This is what I want to do. I'm happy to be here. This is where I want to be. And that's really helped me go out there and perform.
I love that. What a really neat experience to compete for the first time and become a father like 2 days later. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So if you need your wife to go into labor, just go compete in a tournament and make her watch.
Yeah, is that how it happened?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So, I'm curious for you, what initially, like, how did you initially start training martial arts? What was the beginning of that journey for you?
Well, I started probably back when I was about 13. I'm from Machosen in Victoria here. It's a little small community, rural community, and they had a boxing gym. It was kind of like a converted barn, and they actually had some pretty high level people there. Like we had a guy named Omar who was a Commonwealth Games gold medalist, and he was in and out of there training. So that was kind of my first exposure to any kind of combat sport. I really took to it, really enjoyed it. Probably did that for about 4 years. Then as age went on, kind of got out of it, started playing other sports like lacrosse and stuff, where those skills really came in handy. And then I had a friend one day. So we had these old school fights, like way back in the day. They're called tough man challenges. And this one was called the Occupational Wars. So they just kind of said everybody's job title on there. We kind of had a cool one. We were concrete workers, but there's like McDonald's manager, accountants, cameramen, all sorts of different professions, and they're all just amateur boxing. And with my boxing experience, I just helped train my friend for it and get ready for it. He was a featherweight, ended up winning the whole thing. It was a pretty cool experience. He was a pretty big underdog in the finals and got a knockdown, so that was really cool. And at that event, that led us to um, Island MMA had a booth. I think they're part of the organizing of that event, and they had a free week of MMA. That was around like 2006, 2007, and we watched a lot of UFC at that time. We loved Royce Gracie. We're like, this is really cool. Like, let's go see what this is all about. And at that point, we both started taking classes and really getting into this jiu-jitsu thing, trying to figure out. Jason Height was an instructor. He was a purple belt under Hilo Gracie, actually, which is really cool, knowing the history of that. And haven't looked back much then. I bounced around from a few different gyms, eventually my long-term home at South Island. But yeah, it was a very interesting journey there.
Mhm. I love that. I've never heard of a competition like what you're describing with with your workplace occupation.
Yeah,
Like being that's a really neat idea. I mean, yeah, I love that.
yeah, they had a lot of those, like, I don't know, I guess 15 or so years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Just seemed to be like a lot of these amateur style tough man competition boxing matches.
It's really neat. And how was the like when you started like shifting into jujitsu? What was or like adding that to your game? What was that journey like? What was that experience
Yeah,
like?
I'll tell you about my first class. I'm a little brother, so I'm used to scrapping it out and stuff a lot. But I good, had some good boxing, been in quite a few lacrosse fights and stuff like that. And I had a guy literally get a mount on me. I couldn't get him off, then he farted on me. And then I just thought to myself, I could never let this happen. I lose this control. So that really kind of stuck it in my head that I got to stick to this sport and figure it out, and still working on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's humbling for like when you're used to only striking and then now you're on the ground and different rule sets and for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Have when you were I'm curious if there's ever been like a real life situation where you've used the skills that you've developed to defend yourself or break up a fight or defend someone else.
Yeah. I mean, since I've been training and I've gotten older, I'm definitely in less situations where those would arise. Early on, definitely boxing came in handy when in my younger years. And then just, yeah, I've had the odd little thing where I've like helped hold somebody down, but nothing too crazy. I think the main thing you get from a lot of experience in any kind of martial arts, but especially jujitsu, is you're not afraid to get in a confrontation with somebody, and just that confidence that like you're not being stared down, you're not buying into this alpha kind of vibe that somebody may be trying to push onto you, and you're just confident, and that seems to avoid most confrontation.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting how that works.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I grow up in Langford. It's definitely one of the rougher areas in Victoria. The bars can be a bit rough and stuff like that. But I've gotten to know people and stuff like that. Went to school with most of them, and just having confidence when you're talking to people, not being threatened by them, just your body language in general. That does a lot, and that's the most empowering thing about jujitsu and martial arts is just having that confidence, not being afraid of it getting to that confrontation because you know what you'll do there. Where most people, when they're trying to threaten you, they don't actually have a plan, or they don't know what to do. Where you already like, okay, body lock, takedown, mount. You know exactly what you want to do.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, interesting. In your times, this could be like in competition or outside of competition. What is one of the hardest things you've ever been through? Like hardest experiences that you've ever had?
Um, as far as training, that's a tough one. I mean, I've been in some pretty good tournaments. I'd say one of the tougher tournaments I did early on was at Blue Belt. It was over in Vancouver. It was a West Coast Jiu Jitsu tournament, and it was round robin. And I was too light, so I got bumped into heavier weight classes. So I had gi and no gi round robin matches, up with 11 matches that day. And I remember the first match I had, I was a blue belt fighting a purple belt. And we went to a draw. And that just took everything out of me in my very first of 11 matches. And then just battling back, getting my second win, and then getting some pretty good wins after that fact in a heavier weight class was definitely like, I hit a wall, I got the challenges, and then I kind of discovered myself and started finding back. And we got there at 8 a.m. that day. Somewhere in the middle of the day is where I started the gi, but my last at 8 p.m. So I was at the tournament for over 12 hours. And I just remember being so exhausted mentally and physically in my last match. And my last match was a rematch in Nogi against the same purple belt that I had the epic battle with. And I remember asking the table, like, is this the last match this time? And they're like, yep. And I just went and rolled, inverted onto a knee bar and went all in on it and got the win. And I was able to get out of there.
Wow, that's amazing. Huh.
Yeah.
So would you say that it was like one of those times that really showed you what you think your limit is and what your limit actually is and what you're like really made of?
Yeah, for sure. Because there was definitely times throughout that day. I remember the first no-gi match. I'd already fought, I think, maybe 5 or 6 matches at that point, and I fought a guy that didn't fight gi at all, and he had a very like serious look in his eye, like he just wanted to kill me. And I was just like, well, I'm in the deep end now. And I lost to that guy, but I was able to rally back and get a bronze in that division. Um, yeah, getting over that and getting over like being exhausted and somebody just coming at you with everything they have. Uh, big moment for my development.
Yeah, totally. And how long ago was this? You said blue belt, so
That would have been like 2014.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Um,
Do you see yourself? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh yeah, I spent like majority of my time outside a gi, so I didn't actually start in a gi till 2012, and so yeah, there's a bit of experience before I got into the gi and started going through the formal grading system.
Yeah, slightly different game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see yourself competing for a long time? Like, do you have a goal currently with that, or are you just like each tournament that comes up deciding?
Yeah, I mean, this year we had a pretty clear path mapped out. I keep a whiteboard at my gym and try to record the tournaments and set some goals for the people that train with me. Yeah, this year I did ABA early on in the year. Did a gi division and the pro division. And after that, I jumped into the Portland Open, gi and no gi, ADCC, and the year up with the no gi worlds. Going forward, I might slow down a bit. I'm 39 now. Definitely going to try to focus more on staying in my age group as I go. And if I can do really well at my age group, maybe I'll jump back down again. But right now, the focus will just be trying to dominate age group, then going from there.
Do you often get moved age groups or not?
Well, that's up to you. So, like local tournaments would be more likely to be fighting younger people because there's not as many people.
Mm-hmm.
Go down to like Vegas or that ADCC was a big tournament, or even in Portland, they attract a bigger pool, so then you're more likely to get, people more closely matched up to you. But yeah, if you want to compete locally, you just got to accept you might be a different weight class, you might be a different age group, but you want to get some experience, and that's what it is.
Yeah. And are you also coaching right now?
Yeah. So I have a studio I built in my house. That's where I am right now. I call it Gambit Jiu Jitsu. Yeah, and so I have a small following. We do about 4 or 5 people max per class, and then some private lessons. So that's what I do. We're doing this like Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and occasional Fridays. And then I'm the Nogi instructor at South Island on Sundays.
Cool. That's amazing. And how long have you been running your own, like the gym from your house?
From my house, so I started construction in 2020. Originally, it was actually just going to be a shop, but jiu-jitsu kind of got taken away from us for a bit there. So I decided to start developing a gym. South Island was in transition at the time. The facility we were in was our lease was canceled on that, so we had to move locations. And had the opportunity to buy some of the old mats, some of my favorite mats that I've learned a lot of good lessons on in jiu-jitsu. So bought those off Hank there.
Nice.
And yeah, had a good place to put it. So yeah, just ball rolling from there.
It's funny how attached you become to those mats. Like, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
Our gym too, I would say, but yeah.
Yeah. They're kind of different in every gym. Definitely like trained on almost every different type. These ones are just like a nice canvas with a softer underlayer that you can still do throws on, but it's not giving you a lot of mat burn or anything. So
Yeah. That's awesome. And so these smaller classes, like 5 or 6 people, is it a core group that you're working with?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I got a pretty tight following. Typically during the week we'll do gi training. Weekends is Nogi. Right now we're building up to the world, so we're doing a few more Nogi sessions. But yeah, we got a pretty good following. I mean, one of my students won silver at the ADCCs at division this year, so that was really good. That's probably one of our bigger wins.
Yeah. And is it mostly people who are training to compete?
Yeah, I would say we have a very high percentage of competitors that train here. Yeah, I think it's just I like to compete, seem to help motivate other people to compete. It's kind of very infectious. Once somebody's getting ready, everybody gets excited. And yeah, pretty much everybody that trains with me now has competed in the last year or so.
Yeah, I love the energy when there's a competition. Like, even if I'm not competing, I just love the classes that are happening because there's more intensity and focus, and I actually love repping those specific sequences where, like you were talking about, where you're like, I'm going to do this takedown and then this guard pass and then take this dominant position. I love that focus and intensity for sure. As a coach, aside from like the wisdom of the martial art that's being like embodied and focused on and honed and evolving, what else do you notice about people that you train with in their experience? Like, this could be at your own gym or other gyms you've trained at. Like, who do you notice is like the main? I guess I've been in this inquiry of like, for myself, observing, like I started 2.5 years ago. There were a few other people who started around the same time as I did, and I've watched our little school like evolve and grow, like really grow. But also watching individuals, like how training martial arts has impacted their lives outside of it. And I mean, it sounds like you've been training since adolescence, since you were 13, right? So it's been part of your life for a long time. But I'm curious, like, what do you notice in terms of like how people are impacted by just like embracing training and martial art outside the like obvious physical benefits and skills that you learn.
Yeah. No, it's martial arts has helped a lot of people through a lot of things. It's, I think, something that a lot of people they feel like something's missing in their life, or maybe they don't even know something's missing until they come and try it. And then, like, some of my favorite memories of people no longer even train, but I also feel like they got to somewhere where they had new confidence in themselves. Yeah, I had, a few like kind of mid-teenage students over the years that were just really awkward, social outcasts when they first came in, and now they're like very popular and outgoing, and made a lot of friends since they've been training. I just felt like it's brought a lot of people out of their shell, and given them the confidence in themselves to be themselves. Yeah, I've seen a number of cases. I've been a kids coach for a long time. I had some kids that could barely even step on the mat, kids that were terrified to attempt a break fall. And then, a month in, 2 months in, they're out there laughing and wrestling around with the rest of them and stuff like that. Yeah, there's been a lot of situations like that over the years where you just see that it's just that confidence and the confidence to use your body and the ability to move your body a lot over the years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really neat. I would say that that's been one of my favorites too, is especially watching the youth who have joined, like seeing their evolution, like just, they're already working or hitting the gym or whatever, but then they come and do jujitsu, and like how it, yeah, it brings that confidence, but also like such a wholesome practice and something to be focused on that isn't, what sort of the masses or like peer pressure might be focused on. Is like a very different edge, to be training your body like that. And yeah, I love, that's been one of my favorite parts, is watching youth,
Yeah.
especially, like, yeah, very cool.
I mean, from my experiences growing up in this area and stuff, like, you need an outlet, you need a focus, you need something to dedicate yourself to, or you just end up going down the wrong road and getting into trouble. You need an outlet. And this is such a healthy outlet. I have a kids program here as well where I teach them, yeah, they're like 14 years old, a group of 14-year-olds. And they've all been in a bit of trouble, but now this is giving them focus. They're competing at the South Island Opens now. Every time they come back, they want to get better for the next one. It's really given them a good positive drive and direction in their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I wish it was more common. Like, it's just having seen the difference that it makes, um, and it's growing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, physical contact isn't normal in their life. If you think about most people, how often do they actually even touch other people in their day-to-day life? And especially touching somebody that's resisting their touching in the martial arts context. That's something that some people go through life not experiencing at all. So it's definitely a very unique experience. Yeah, everybody needs to experience it. I wish it was more regular. I wish it was in schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often imagine how different school environments would be if the day started with like martial arts practice. Like, I just imagine there would be like no bullying, or like way less, I don't know, like discord.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing to do with a bully is to put him in martial arts, right?
yeah,
Even myself, I've encountered grown up bullies. And I'm a small person, I'm a lightweight. I fight at 162 pounds in Nogi. So you get a 300-pound guy that's been pushing people around his whole life, and I have my way with them, and they get a new kind of look on life, right?
yeah.
So it's the best environment for a bully as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, every time, I mean, when I watch like, um, animals in nature, or even like I have 3 sons, and like when they were little, they would wrestle all the time. We would all wrestle, like just roughhouse, like not wrestle, like no technique, just goofing around. It's such a natural way to play, also, and engage. Like it's like fun, and
Yeah.
but then it becomes this like sport that you're doing with strangers. I think one of the most interesting experiences that I have especially when I go, like right now I'm traveling and I've been going to new gyms, is like having this whole non-verbal interaction with someone where you're like learning so much about their physicality and even just like their energy. Like it's a really interesting way. Like I started to prefer it to like going and meeting people and talking to them. Do you know what I mean? Like I can tell so much about what's going on for someone just by like slap bump rolling, it's very, and with myself too. Like it's a really quite beautiful or like sacred way of communicating, is what I have been discovering.
Well, it's very honest, right? So when you get to know somebody, they could put up some kind of bravado or something, or some kind of hierarchy in their life, but it doesn't really matter. It matters what skills you have and what you know on the mat, which is always an exciting time rolling with somebody new for the first time, because you don't really know what to expect. They could be excellent, or they could be awkward. They could be ridiculously strong, stronger than you expected. They could have had a background in wrestling that you didn't know about. I mean, there's all sorts of different variables that you come across over the years.
Yeah, 100%. It's very yeah, like it could be really humbling and exciting. I've been training at 10th Planet gyms here, and
Yeah.
I'm just like the leg work is amazing. It feels like a whole other. Not, I mean, I have learned some of that, but it's, yeah, I'm learning a lot. I feel very much like I'm like back to beginner in those moves, which is fun.
Yeah. Yeah. They have a very specific system with a lot of terminology. I know I've trained at 10th Planet headquarters once, and I didn't know half the things they were talking about until they did it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're doing that thing. All right. Good. So, yeah, I didn't know their language per se, like we were just saying, but once the physical language started, I'm like, I know exactly what they're doing. And
Yeah,
it's all, yeah, definitely a different style, those guys.
yeah, totally. Yeah. It's that, and I love that too, like watching how like it's like jujitsu, like trying to explain to somebody who doesn't train jujitsu how there's like all these different branches, and like it's evolving in all different ways that are slightly different from each other, and then also have their own language and culture. And I have found 10th Planet to be super welcoming, like
Yeah.
a very welcoming environment. I've been to 3 different 10th Planet, one in Austin and 2 here. Um, yeah, I'm curious for you as a father, like you have a son. You have any other kids? I can't.
Just one son. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like, modern day rites of passage, um, or like what is required in terms of like that journey for young men right now in our times? Anything you want to speak to on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think young men need to have a focus in their life. They need to have a passion. It doesn't have to be jujitsu. I mean, my son did jujitsu for 5 years and decided to go pursue soccer, and that's fine as long as you have something that you can focus on and bring your energy towards. Um, have some role models in that sport, whatever it might be, or sport or even activity. You could play music, you can do whatever, but just apply yourself to something. Have something that you truly love. Um, it's just so much easier when you actually like what you're doing, and if you don't, then why are you doing it, right? Like, actually find something that really inspires you, and then chase that. And I think that's how you'll live a fulfilled life, a happy life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I find, I mean, I've been observing that the presence or absence of that in someone's life can really um, like make or break what they're experiencing, you know, because, and I mean, I've heard many people talk about this with specifically jujitsu, where it's like the rest of your life can be just like all these, you know, challenges coming at you, whatever, and like jujitsu is flourishing, or the other way around. You know, it's like life is like just cruising along, and like jujitsu is not. But having something that you're focusing on that is, yeah, bringing that intention.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
and
it definitely gave me the confidence to, I mean, I did a career change about 2 years ago. Spent 17 years at one place. And it made me realize that, you know, I can take on new challenges. Doesn't have to be daunting and scary to start a new job, get new training. I mean, keep your mentality like you have in jujitsu, where, hey, I got to prepare for this. I know I'm good. I know I can apply myself, and it really can, you know, take you other places in life.
yeah, for sure. What led you to change jobs?
Um, I mean, it was a lot of build up over stress. I mean, working my last job through COVID with a lot of new policies that I was had to enforce wasn't enjoyable. We changed locations to a larger facility. That was really stressful. And then management hired some new people, seemed to favor them over long term employees. A lot of that kind of stuff was going on. Ownership was overly involved. So there's just a lot of stress. Then the supply chain issues and trying our customer orders fulfilled. Just a lot of different angles coming at once. Not a lot of gratitude coming our way from ownership. Just really made me realize, I mean, it was affecting my personal life too. It was an office job, so I wasn't moving around in this physical, getting emails after hours, a lot of passive aggressive intercompany emails that I was dealing with. It just like it was really wearing on me more than I realized until it started to affect my relationship at home. And then once those things started to fall, I'm like, well, why am I doing this if it's affecting my home life as well? That's the most important thing to me. And made me look for another route after that, and it's worked out really well. You know, started from scratch and really applied myself, and yeah, it's gone really great.
Cool. And do you think you'll stick with what you're doing now?
Uh, yeah, I definitely enjoy it. I like the people I work with. Very flexible. You know, like they've actually encouraged me to take days off going up to this tournament, and it's allowing me to get some midday training sessions in the last week out, which is really important for me. Uh, so I've been really flexible there, and you know, I enjoy what I do. So yeah, that's been really good. Yeah, I'll probably stay the course. You know, maybe down the road I can open a bigger location and do that. Maybe I'm doing that a little more down the road, but who knows?
Would you like to, like, is that a dream to teach or coach full time? Like have
Yeah,
that be, yeah.
I mean, the area I'm in, it's a very large growing community. They're building a planned community just around the corner from. Yeah, there's a lot of population here. You know, as we've spoken about this whole time, jiu-jitsu is a very needed place for growth and development of young people and older people alike. Um, so yeah, I think it's something the community needs here for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm always curious, like, because I think it's a specific person who can really enjoy both coaching and competing, because like it's, you know, and I've seen it quite a few times where, but some people are like better off just doing one or the other. You
Yeah,
know, it's like a different, but it sounds like you enjoy them both and balancing them both.
Yeah, it's definitely like as you get more experience, you probably start transitioning a little more as you get higher up in level. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can compete for a long time with the availability of masters competitions and stuff like that. But definitely, after you competed a lot, it's good to get back and show a lot of valuable lessons I've learned has been through competition, and that's only made me better. And now I can use that to make hopefully my students better than I'll ever be.
Hmm. Yeah, pass the torch.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I do think that, I mean, personally, I think there is a big future in these like small, like home-based gyms, or like I see, I mean, jujitsu has grown so much just in the last 2.5 years since I've been like paying attention, It's like a very, not just jujitsu, martial arts in general, is growing and evolving. Yeah, it's really cool.
yeah. I mean, most people, when you tell them you do jujitsu now, they probably know what you're talking about, and to the point where there's some people that will even know like who Gordon Ryan is.
Mhm.
Like getting more popular. There's mainstream characters like Gordon Ryan and Craig Jones, and drawing a few more eyes to the sport, and they're very entertaining. And yeah, you're getting more casual fans, and that could turn into people that are training jujitsu again one day.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even like with youth, for example, who are like watching UFC, and like they're paying attention to the different martial arts that have gone into um, winning, like that have gone into being able to compete at that level, right? It's not only a stand up game, but also a ground game required at wing. Yeah, it's like popularity growing around
Yeah,
it. It's not
yeah,
just this really weird thing.
yeah. Jiu-jitsu has been very underestimated over the years. Even still now, with some older school people that kind of like, well, I'm bigger than you. Yeah, well, doesn't really matter. Gotta know how to apply it. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's definitely more and more people are learning, and even old school guys that watch like UFC one, they're like, oh yeah, that little Brazilian guy choked everybody. So yeah, they're definitely it's definitely growing in respect for the average population.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that part of jujitsu. Just watching, you know, like I have a coach she's a black belt. She probably weighs 135 pounds or something, and it's amazing watching her do her thing. And like it's all skill and technique. It's not there's no she's not muscling anybody into anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I think that's one of the neatest things about jujitsu too. Is just seeing the lighter, smaller players like do really well. It's yeah, and I have seen that, like we were talking about before, the confidence piece that's developed for people, like where they either were no longer afraid to get into a fight if there was one, or simply even just like more confidence in their work life or their relationships or whatever through that physical experience of like, wow, look what my body can do. I mean, I remember when I first started practicing takedowns, I was like terrified. I was like, either I'm gonna get hurt or the other person's gonna get hurt, like something's gonna go wrong. Like every time I'd hear the word takedown, I'd have this like physical reaction. And now I'm like, oh, takedown's cool. Like only because I have a small amount of skill that has given me enough confidence to be like, I can navigate this. Like, sometimes I still get overwhelmed by takedowns, but you know, it's yeah.
yeah. The crucial, yeah, just like you think about the self defense aspect, like if you know jujitsu, you need to have a way to get it down to the ground.
Totally.
Um, you got to have that. I mean, purely if you end up on your back, it's always good to be able to fight off your back and get your way back up to your feet. But yeah, you gotta have that. I mean, we've trained under Marcus, and we're part of that lineage, Carlson Gracie, where it's like, yeah, you got to be able to handle yourself on your feet and try to stay on top.
Yeah.
That's a crucial part of the sport, because if you're on your back on the ground, you could be a lot more vulnerable, especially if it's on a self-defense situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the different those different branches of like how jujitsu is being taught is so different, right? If it's only sports focused, or if it's more like self-defense focused. I mean, it's one thing that I love about the Marcus Suarez, like his message and the delivery, and then also the lineage of it is like, I mean, it was probably a year and a half before I learned how to pull guard. And it was very much like, we don't do this. Like, we're training this because other people will do it. And, I'm great at pulling guard. I was like, I love this stuff. It's so much easier, right? I'm like going to grab onto you and like swing down to the ground. I got this. But yeah, it is like he obviously Marcus Suarez grew up in a. I had him on here. He was my sixth guest on this podcast, sixth or seventh around there, and interviewing him was amazing. And like hearing about his story of like being in street fights and like choking kids, and then like going to his first jujitsu class and being taught how to like do these things properly. It's like anyways, but where he obviously grew up in an environment where there was a lot more of that happening in his day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And just bringing that, I do love the classes I've taken with him. I do love that, he's still very committed to the like all of those things that are going to serve you if you end up in a real life situation, like,
Yeah. And I mean, even if you look at it in, tournaments that like I'm going into next week, if I score a takedown, I get 2 points. If I pass the guard, I get 3 points. Those are all still functional, applicable techniques that I want to have and I need to have. I mean, yeah, I've developed a good guard game and some leg locks to go with it if I need to play that game. So you need to be able to be really strong in both areas. And that's where it's evolving. And, that's one of my goals is to have our style and be able to apply it, but also be very effective in the modern style of jiu-jitsu as well.
yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's so I love how elaborate and like there's no end. Like it's not like, I mean, for me personally, I could commit the rest of my life to learning jujitsu and there would still be infinite to learn. Like it's very much like uh so much there, And even just right now practicing at 10th planet, I'm like there's all this fancy leg stuff going on. Like, it's quite amazing actually.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Love flexibility, a lot of
yeah,
rubber
yeah.
areas from there.
For you personally, I'm curious if you feel like sharing. What are your if you have like a personal mission in life or um, personal or spiritual, physical goals that you're like actively pursuing that are really important to you?
Yeah. Like I'm not chasing, I mean, I guess you're always trying to chase perfection, but you'll never achieve it as a martial artist. So I'm always just kind of trying to learn as much as I can. So yeah, I'm not chasing like a specific title or a belt ranking. I'm always trying to develop my skill and learn new ways to do things. Learn new ways to train. There's always new concepts out. And in this small space, I have the ability to kind of play with that and see what our results are. So yeah, I'm just kind of going through it day by day, but I'm always just chasing perfection and trying to improve and learn new things and go out there and apply it. Yeah, there's no real major goalposts, just short term ones. You get like this tournament coming up. That's a short term goal. But overall, whether I have my perfect match every match or not, I'm still learning from that, learning what I could do better. and learn some new skills that I can apply and teach my students.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. I mean, I think some of the most fulfilled people I've met, that is basically what is present for them. It's there's like, here's this thing I want to continue to get better at and hone my skills in, and it's really just about showing up every day. And then, you know, a year goes by, a decade goes by, here you are, a couple decades in to training. I'm curious if you like, if there was a piece of advice or wisdom that you received at a certain age that was like really impactful in your journey.
Um, I don't know, like one thing just in jujitsu that specifically was Marcus when he gave me my blue belt, and he just told me that I was on my way to my black belt one day, and that just kind of stuck with me. I'm like, oh, I am. This is a major commitment. This blue belt, like I'm in this for the long haul, and that was definitely a big moment. You came and experienced some of our gradings, like we'll have Marcus come down and we have some fights, and it's kind of this interesting experience where it's kind of like a tournament, but not really, and everybody's kind of quietly watching, and you know, maybe you catch a sub, maybe you don't, but then you got to keep fighting anyways. And it's yeah, it was that kind of experience from Marcus. That was that. I mean, I've had every coach I've had has left some kind of mark on me. I mean, my coach Henry Panek, who runs South Island BJJ Jiu-Jitsu, has really opened the world for me. There's no particular one moment I could think of, but just in general, my skills just exploded learning underneath him. Like within my first year, at the end of my first year, I got a blue belt with Hank, and just the amount I changed in ability was just profound. Um, and even before then, you had my coach Mike Jorgensen from Pressure Combat. You know, we've spent so many rounds together, so much time together. He's the first black belt under South Island. So much we've learned and developed together. Yeah, I mean, became a really good friend of mine. So that he was a very positive role model. Um, yeah, every step along the way, every coach I've had, even my first boxing coaches, just encouraging me, and just like they're as excited as I was. They're excited that I was learning new things, and that just excited about learning. And if you have a coach that's behind you like that, I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, but what you're describing is one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed, especially in like relationships between men. Like it's just like there's something so beautiful about it because there is just that immense desire to like have everybody get better. I mean, it's not just between men; it's between men and women as well. But there's something about training martial arts that I think really brings out those qualities of like really solid mentorship. And like I know a few of the people you're talking about, like I've met them, and yeah, I can see that. I also really love what I've noticed just from going to different gyms is like I love watching how people are drawn to each other, or like how people find like there's something so special in this lifetime about finding the right mentors for you, or the right training partners, or the right um, students in your case now, right, where you're also coaching. There's just something like so this is like lights the fire just like burns brighter when those things happen, when those people meet each other. You know, it's like it's really incredible.
Yeah, and as a coach, it's like always like trying to figure out the best way to improve and motivate your competitors or your students that become competitors. My student Reed, who competed in the ADCCs and just so happened to have his best tournament of his life on that ADCC. Uh, Very unique submissions. He got a buggy choke in one match where you're at 10th planet, so those guys like love that. And then he get a heel hook in another match. And these are just kind of little areas that we've been working, but finding a way, because he's done a lot of the tournaments that I have throughout the year, and just finding the right time and way to get him motivated to fight at his potential. It felt like it just finally lined up at that one tournament, which was one of our biggest tournaments of the year.
Yeah. That's so awesome, like that, where you're like even just talking about training specific moves and then having like a buggy choke. I don't think people pull that off too often in a tournament. Maybe they do, I don't know. But to see that, like see that the culmination of that work, like not that it's ever finished, right? It's like always growing, but to see that come together and the knowing as a coach and training partner, knowing the hours of like dedication and consistency and like, you know, moving through it being really challenging and not working to getting to that place. And I think it's so cool to witness that in someone else and to also be witnessed in your own journey as a fighter, as a martial artist.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, is there anything else you want to share with us today? I'm aware you have a class to get to and a competition.
A little bit of time. One thing I'll just shed a little light on is a new method we've been trying to play with in our classes. Definitely found it's been effective for tournament prep. It's called the ecological approach. It's a bit of buzz online in the jiu-jitsu community now. A few gyms that are like hardcore into it. I'd say my group is probably about 70-30 into it. We still do some traditional classes, but also play with this where you create specific situations and goals in your training and keep that and see if you can develop those areas. So that's kind of an exciting new thing that we've been playing with. It's new to the whole community. Some gyms are taking it on. Some gyms are like, well, I mean, some people are just calling it situational sparring. There's a lot of different ideas about that, and it's like I'd say it's like hyper situational sparring where you have much smaller goals.
Can you break it down for me? Like, give me a really specific example of like what a class
so, like in stand up, for example, working on your takedowns. Like one of the first things you need to get past to take somebody down is their hands. Their hands in front of you. So we'll have rounds where you just focus on controlling their hand or their arm. And once you gain complete control of that arm, then you stop and restart. And do little battles like that. I might start you right on a single leg, and your goal is to put them on their butt, which means if they stand out and get to their knees, you haven't won. And you repeat that over and over again and restart once you break position. You can do it from the ground, where we'll do a lot of work of like fight your way into half guard. Once you get half guard, you've won. Or once you're in half guard, flatten them out, then you've won. Or maybe once you're half guard, get double underhooks and get a pass. And just really hyper focused areas like that, where you got small goals, not like just a broad open ended role. And you can really develop in those small areas.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it would be a really good method for like training your weaknesses. Like I notice if it's too broad, I just go for my easy route that I know and like don't train the things that are hard. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's it's been interesting, and I read a book on it. It applies to kind of all sports, and there's like been a lot of studies on it.
Mm-hmm.
This methodology of training and the results that they've had, and it's just like a very kind of natural way to learn because everybody's body's different. So if I just show you a textbook buggy choke, different size people, your opponent might be a different size. You just can't do it sometimes. It has to be the match up to the right spot. But in this type of training, it wouldn't be like a buggy choke. It'd be like, we'll get a submission or escape from side control, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. And so you like start the class like that and then end with open rolling, or like what's the progression?
Yeah. So the model for that one would be we start, I like to start the class from your feet and work your way gradually down step by step to your finish on the ground. And then at the very end of class, you'll have an open roll where you can either pick a position or start from standing or wherever and go there. I usually want people to work an area they have difficulty with and try to put themselves there repeatedly until they're comfortable with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. And you guys have been using this to get ready for competitions.
Yeah. So one thing you'll find about this training is you'll have little to no energy for an open roll by the end of it because you've been literally fighting with somebody because it's full resistance. It's not just laying there with zero resistance. So it's a very good workout and it builds up your endurance for competitive jiu-jitsu very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. I find like that for sure there can be benefit in practicing without resistance, but I often find like I'll practice something and then as soon as I get into a roll and it's like there's that resistance, like it doesn't work. So training without resistance is something I've always been a little bit curious about. Like,
Yeah.
um, even though it maybe is like initially harder or more frustrating to train with resistance, I prefer like that challenge or like being able to figure it out.
I mean, there's a time and a place for that because a lot of the things that you're being shown with zero resistance is very situational. So work in a specific situation, but it's hard to create that situation, especially when the person knows to avoid it now because they just learned how to do it. So if I just kind of get you in a close enough position and maybe give you a few more options for your goals, and then you can look to find a path from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. And it's called ecological.
Yeah, it's called the ecological approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a book on it written by Rob Gray. It's pretty interesting. It's a good read. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it applies to soccer and all sports, all field sports, any kind of sport. It's a lot of
Yeah.
different ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, but trying to our method, and there's some gyms out there, some guys to follow, and watching what they're doing, and having a lot of success. They've had some students using this method. They're winning ECC opens and stuff. So.
And are you having like at the beginning of the class, do you have a plan of which ones you're going to work through, or are you like pulling from your student body, like where are you getting stuck or like what's not working?
I'll have a starting point for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Sometimes if something comes up, like a lot of things I try to set up where you think one person might have more success, but then the opposite person has success. So then you look at that and that approach and try to I definitely try to guide them and coach. And sometimes I'll even stop and we discuss the situation and where everybody's having trouble and try to look to reapply our energy there. So yeah, it's been interesting to try this approach after
Yeah.
teaching so many years the other approach, but we still split. I still do traditional classes as well. Um, Not everybody just wants to fight the entire class. It can be pretty hard on your body, especially if you're doing it 5-6 days a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I find like personally I learn better that way than through like I learn through feeling it. It's like
Yeah.
almost like when people are talking and describing technique, I'm like trying so hard to focus. And
Yeah.
also I know that not much of it's going in. Like it's an interesting, so I'm sure there are different people, like different learning styles.
Yeah.
What's your philosophy on like rest or like what's your personal, like do you take rest days or like rest periods in your training or
Yeah.
what do you think optimal?
You can't overdo it. I know a lot of people I've seen over the years that they sign up to a tournament and they're doing like 5-6 classes a week. So you've ramped up from, non-resistant light training to maybe skipping rolls at the end of the class to rolling every class. You're going to injure yourself. So I definitely believe in gradually building yourself up for tournaments. Don't go in 100% the day you signed up. kind of work your way up to it. And you can't do last minute cramming for a tournament either. I mean, you can learn things, but you can't, work harder the week before the tournament and have that success show, because you're just going to be exhausted. You're going to burn your muscles out. You're not going to be effectively able to recover in a week. So yeah, I think you really got to listen to your body, take care of it. I mean, me and a lot of people I train with are into cold plunges, we like hot therapy. Just find out what works for you, how it works for you. I do like to start the day off with like something hot, staying warm, getting really warm before training, like a hot tub or a sauna. Post training, I'm looking for a cold dip. I'm warming up that way. Eat a healthy diet. I'm mostly plant based. Yeah.
Yeah, just caring for the body. And do
Yeah.
you take like stretches off from training, like a week or two at a time, or not really? Like you kind of.
Well, in my role, I'm so involved, I don't really take time off. I'll just change my approach, maybe. So, like, if I want to go harder and develop my skill or develop my endurance, maybe I'm just rolling harder. And then when I want to take it light, we're more technically focused, more light. Even if we are doing some resistance, we're dialing down that resistance, and we're just focusing on trying to get into positions we want to get into and lightening up our training, not doing as hard of rounds.
And a few days before the competition, do you rest, or are you like just slow?
Depends on the schedule. I mean, this one, I'm flying into Vegas a few days early, and unless I'm rolling around in my hotel room, I'm probably just resting.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Some rest is good. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And you know what? If you're feeling worn down by jiu-jitsu, take some time off. Take a breather. I know actually at the beginning of COVID, we were forced to take like 3 months off, but it probably just like made me more passionate about jiu-jitsu, because I went out and I enjoyed nature. I went out canoeing just as much as I would have been doing jiu-jitsu and fishing and enjoying the outdoors. So then I had that nice break, and when I came back to it, I was just that much more motivated. So it can be okay to take a breather if you really need it, if it's really burning you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's. I think it's interesting. Like at the beginning, I never wanted to take a break because I just wanted to get better. But then there were times where I took a break for different things. Like I've had 2 concussions in the last year and a half, so I did take some time off for the second one. And I noticed that when I went back, it was like a new appreciation. And I mean, the thing is, like at a certain point, like training anything, any sort of sport or physical practice, it lives within you, like no matter what, right? Like it is there, like riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
That was really interesting, like to get to that place. Like I had a friend who, like I was still a white belt at that time, and he was a blue belt, and I had him say to me like, "Oh, you have such a white belt mentality. Like you're so worried about falling behind." And I'm like, "Yeah, basically." And but then realizing also the the way that it starts to just become like part of who you are. And I'm sure like when you're out doing or fishing, like it still lives there. It's like actually just becomes part of you.
Yeah, you get a new appreciation for it. If you have to take a breather, or maybe you're forced to. I mean, when COVID hit, I was actually training for the Pans, and I had accommodations booked. I was registered. I was literally going down there, then they didn't let me across the border. So I was at the peak of my stress, because you're preparing for this tournament, you're traveling, you're doing all these things. So it was a pretty welcome break at that time. So yeah, you can get into this burnout phase. and maybe you take a breather and come back and have a new outlook on it when you come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting too. Like one of the gym owners here, he said that when COVID happened and then like gyms reopened, but not very much was happening, was one of the best times for his gym. Like he had a lot of people showing up for those 10 a.m. classes, like the midday classes. And yeah, interesting how just something like that was, I think, a reset for a lot of people in terms of like what they were making time for, or what was even available to do, you know. But yeah, that must have been disappointing to be preparing for PANS and then not go. It's like,
Yeah, just the rails went off the train there, and
yeah,
you reevaluate and
yeah,
find some new challenges after that. So
yeah, build even more hunger. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is really an honor. I'm really excited to hear how things go for you at Worlds, and yeah, may you have some of your best matches ever and execute the perfect sequence. Take down,
yeah,
dominate, submit. I would
yeah.
love